Welcome to the next 10 pages of The Power of Coffee. This is a story about Martha, who is unemployed, though she's had a university education. She's 21 years old. In her search for a job, she comes across a coffee shop that is run by Betty. Betty takes her in. She loves the job, and she rises from being a waitress, a cleaner, to an administrator. Unfortunately, Betty dies along the way, and everyone leaves. All of Betty's friends who used to run the shop with her, they go away because they cannot bear not having her around. Then Martha takes up the position of running the place. So she essentially becomes the manager and owner of the shop. One day, a popular TV star comes in the neighborhood looking for a place to shoot his next film. There is a rainstorm and he runs into the coffee shop. And after that, the place becomes a hotspot for celebrities. Then Cassandra shows up. She's young, she's wealthy, living off the money of her parents who are hiding overseas because of certain business illegalities. Cassandra offers to buy the coffee shop. Martha turns down her offer, and then Cassandra proceeds to acquiring the entire neighborhood where the coffee shop is situated to build rental homes. This is the next 10 pages of the story to make it the 50th page of the story, The Power of Coffee. That first sip could change everything. Leave your comments, tell me what you like about the story and don't like. Be honest in your review of the story so far. This will be the 50th page of the story. If you like it, you think it's something that will be an interesting read, you're curious to know, curious to learn about the rest of the story, you would like to pre-order a copy of it, just let me know, and I'll send you a copy. Okay, we'll send you a copy once it's over. Okay, once it's out, once it's published. So enjoy the next 10 pages. That's the next 10 pages of the story to make it the 50th page. Okay, enjoy as I read along. So this is after Martha has gone into the house and had the lunch with Betty and her daughter Lamley. Lamley said, Betty first said, I don't remember the last time I laughed this much. Me too, Lamley replied, sounding a little pensive. Why? Don't you go out? There are stand-up comedians everywhere overseas, Betty said. I glanced at Lamley, waiting for an answer. There are, but I don't have much time for these things. I would rather sleep, she casually replied, and then yawned, opening up the mouth 360 degrees, though she covered up with her hand. You're tired. Go to sleep, Betty said. All was silent for some moments until I spoke. Madam, I have to go. Okay, Betty replied, and then I got up to leave, but Lamley stopped me. Hey, would you mind coming over tomorrow? I have some present for you, she cheerfully said, and I nodded and replied, okay, thank you. Oh, thank you too, Mom. Oh, thank you too. Mom told me about your weekly visit. That's so nice of you. But you don't need to bother anymore. I'll get her someone," Lumley concluded, and then I was able to go. What present did she have for me? I imagined many things. Clothes, sweets, or was it money? I felt happy because I was going to receive something from overseas. Yet it wouldn't be the first time, since we regularly had gifts whenever Dad traveled outside for conferences. He had been to the States, first as a student and later on business. He also stayed in Australia, meeting kangaroos on his free days. Then when he came back from Italy, he mentioned how swift they could be with their hands. I didn't think I would reach home by 7 p.m. I thought the time on my phone was wrong. Mother was nearby when I came through the back door. She smiled and took a look at me to deduce that I was coming from Betty's place. "Yes, I just came from there. I met her daughter, Lumley, and we had some lunch," I recounted. "I see. What did you eat?" "Cooked balls of corn dough, some fish, and pepper sauce," I freely said, recollecting the meal that would take weeks to forget. It must have been nice. That means you're not hungry, right?" "Yes, not now," I calmly said, not wanting to miss out on anything worth stepping up with. But I didn't eat any more because I couldn't. After the lunch I took at Belinda's place and what I took at Betty's, I would have thrown up if I ate anything more. The next day, after my rise at 10 a.m., I told Mom about Lumley's request that I came by for a present. She asked what present it was, and I said that it could be anything. She asked me not to accept it if it was money, and I remarked, "Okay," and then began to walk away. But then I thought of it. How could I tell if it was money, unless she placed it in an envelope, right? Fine, I wasn't going to accept it if it was money. I pledged to myself and then left home. I got there within an hour, but couldn't step in because it sounded as though they had visitors. There was much laughter coming out of the living room, and I waited behind the door for about 20 minutes before Lumley suddenly came out, as if to check something, and then she saw me seated on a bench on the veranda. This time she wasn't startled, since she had been expecting me. She took me in, and there I met 4 women, all about her age, 30 to 35. They all focused their gaze at me. And I felt so bad to be there. I was a shy person, and this was too much, like an intrusion of privacy. "Good afternoon," I humbly said, and they all responded likewise in similar tones, smiling at me. Lumley introduced me as her mother's best friend, Martha. Best friend because I had been taking care of her in her absence. Consequently, I learned of their names and their relationship with Lumley. All 4 were friends, of course, workmates, roommates, coursemates, and classmates. She actually stated their relationship in that order. I chuckled, so did the girls in Lumley. It seemed they had been there much earlier, so after about 20 minutes, they all bade her bye and left us alone. Betty wasn't available, I was told. She had gone shopping at the market. Lumley sat me down on the sofa and excused herself for a moment, and after a minute was back with a small, dashing black handbag. I grinned and got off the sofa, and then she handed it to me. Thank you, it's beautiful, I said, admiring it. You're most welcome. Open it. There's something else. I opened and found an envelope, a white one. I opened and then found an envelope, a white one. Immediately, I smelled and then looked up at her and said, sorry, but I can't accept it. My mother told me not to accept it if it's money. Lumley laughed, just like yesterday. Was I embarrassing myself again? I gently smiled and then opened the envelope, and immediately I giggled. It wasn't what I thought it was. Earrings, not money. I thought you liked them. It comes with matching bracelet and a necklace, she casually said, and then I apologized for rushing to conclusion. That's fine. It's good to listen to your mother, she remarked, and then I chuckled and she laughed a bit more. I asked to leave, but she requested that I wait for Betty, since she knew I would be coming over. She excused herself and returned with some soft drinks and cookies. My eyes lit up at the sight of the cookies. Martha's eyes lit up, but I was meek. As I munched on along with her, she confessed it had been a while since she visited the coffee shop. The last time had been a year ago, and she wanted to see how it looked like, if it needed some freshening up. At that moment, I swallowed some saliva and then nodded. So, when do we go? She said. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow. You mean Monday? Yes, Monday, tomorrow, I remarked. Momentarily, a car pulled up at the compound, and that was the cue that Betty was back. I hurried outside while Lumley followed. There was a taxi, and the driver was already out and picking up the shopping bags from the boot of the car. Betty welcomed me with a hug, and I carried 2 sacks inside, while Lumley took in the last one. After taking a glass of water, changing her clothes and freshening up briefly in the bath, Betty joined us at the kitchen as we took out the items. Then Lumley reiterated her desire to see the coffee house, stating that she was going to the next day with me. Then Betty chirped in with a casual tone, revealing that we were shut down. Lumley was struck, left mute for some moments, and then bounced back with questions. Betty said she was going to tell her later, but she demanded to know it all now. Then I began, since it all began with me. Then I began, since it all started with me. What? So just because someone reported that something was wrong, they just shut you down? This is wrong. Absolutely wrong, she said in her foreign acquired accent. I'm sorry, I remarked. No, how was this your fault? You stood up to some rubbish of a man, rubbish of a boy actually. Ma'am, you should have told me. I was going there tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning I'll be there, she concluded. I went home feeling excited, first about the present, which I showed to Mother right away. The second thing was Lumley. She was as fierce as a lioness, and this amplified my belief that we would soon be resuming work. Mom asked me if I was given some money in addition to the earrings, and I said yes. She smiled and then asked where it was, and then I told her it was a lie. The following day, Lumley and Betty were at the office of the Food and Drugs Authority. I wasn't there. I just learned about it from them after I visited some days later. Lumley went with some of the cookies and playfully offered it to the staff at the place. The receptionist, the gate man or security, and even some clients of the institution. No one accepted it though. but that was just the way she chose to begin her attack. After a warm good morning to the receptionist, she asked to speak with the person in charge and was directed to an open room where a group of men sat chatting in high tones. They all turned mute the moment the two arrived. Lumley glanced at the faces of all 5 men and then smiled and began to address them. "Gentlemen, good morning. I'm Lumley, and this is my mother, Betty," she said in the foreign accent, and one of the men responded by rising up and saying, "Good morning. My name is Mr. Johnny. I'm the head here. How may I help you?" So this is Lumley, who was gone to the Food and Drugs Authority to ask them about why the coffee shop was shut down. "Gentlemen, good morning. I'm Lumley, and this is my mother Betty," she said in the foreign accent, and one of the men responded by rising up and saying, "Good morning. My name is Mr. Johnny. I'm the head here. How may I help you?" 3 days ago, a team from the FDA was at my mom's coffee shop in Dansoman. 3 days ago, a team from the FDA was at my mom's coffee shop in Dansoman. Can you confirm that? Lumley said, and the man who had stood up to speak replied, "That's right. But like we said, it's going to take some time before investigations are over." "Right. But how do you choose whom to investigate, huh? Is it solely based on flimsy accusations?" Lumley continued. The man was quiet for a moment, and then he spoke. "Madam, we take every report very seriously, whether it's backed by evidence or not. I'm sorry for the inconvenience caused, but that is how things are done here." "All right, but we need to know who that man is. As I told the team that came there, the man was just a customer who got furious because we refused to serve him earlier than the time we normally open. And because of this, he chose to discredit us, which is totally unacceptable." Betty chirped in, and then the man remarked, "Madam, I'm sorry about that. But like I said, we take every report seriously." "Fine, take it seriously, investigate. But tell us who he is. It's our right to know who is accusing us, so we can better defend ourselves in court." Lumley interrupted in a strong tone. The atmosphere seemed to be tensing up now, as the 4 men at the table were beginning to shift in their chairs. The man looked composed, but sounded serious in his response. "Madam, I'm sorry, but we can't disclose such information to you. Per our policy." "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we can't disclose such information to you per our policy. If there's anything else, then I suggest you wait for the result of the test." "Excuse me," he said, and then walked towards the door, opened it up, and stood waiting. Lumley glanced at him and gently shook her head, and then hesitated with her matter. Some time later, the two sat in the back of a moving taxi. Betty sipped on a bottle of water, while Lumley munched on some of the cookies she had brought along. After some moments, she paused to drink some water, and then interrupted the silence. "Mom," she called in a soft tone, and then Betty glanced at her. "Yes? You're not worried, are you?" she said, looking at her. "No," Betty casually said. "You shouldn't be. We'll resolve this, okay? She's going to help us," Lumley remarked, referring to a friend of hers who worked in the judicial system. Lumley remarked, referring to a friend of hers who worked in the judicial system. Madeleine Boyson had been practicing as an attorney for nearly a decade now. She began as a university student with Lumley, who met her through friends. after university, she read law in the UK and then came back to practice on her own after gaining some experience. Lumley had initially lost contact with her, but thanks to a get-together with her classmates, workmates, roommates, and classmates, they found each other and kept in touch ever since, via email and social media. The last time Lumley had virtually spoken with her was 6 months ago through WhatsApp. Yeah, the social media platform. But she was certain to find her since a friend had confirmed that she was around. Madeleine lived and worked in a lone building in a busy part of town, and that took them a while to reach, about 2 hours. The taxi stopped at a fairly large house, big enough for a family of 4. Behind a black gate, they had a security post with about 2 men in a booth. Okay. There was a sleek signboard that read, "Welcome to the law office of attorney Madeleine Boyson." Lumley got down, leaving her mother in the cab. She went up to the booth, greeted the man and asked about Madeleine, showing them a complimentary card. One of the men received it and then followed up with a call on the service phone within the booth. 5 minutes later, the gate opened and a security guard dressed in a blue uniform emerged from it and walked towards the visitors. Lumley introduced herself, handing him the same card she gave to the man in the booth. The guard examined it, looking at both sides, and then glanced at the taxi. Then Lumley stated that she came along with her mother. The guard approached the taxi and looked inside it, assessing its occupant. 5 minutes later, the women were beside him, walking towards the house. Okay, so this is Lumley and her mother, who have gone to see a friend of hers who is a lawyer. Her name is Madeleine Boyson. So they are at her home, office, and we'll see what happens there. A tall, built young man dressed in a black suit welcomed them into the reception hall, which had other clients waiting. There were 5 of them, a man and woman, who sat by each other, apparently a couple, aged between 35 and 40. Then there was a man who sat alone, reading a paper. He looked at most 60. The last were 2 young women in their mid to late 20s, sitting beside each other and chatting in low tones. Betty and her daughter took a seat near the door that might lead to Madeleine's office. 10 minutes later, it opened, and a young man and an older woman stepped out. They looked like mother and son from their interaction, but they didn't look happy. The woman wore a long black dress with a black headgear, while the son was in a black shirt and trousers. The couple were next to go in, and after 30 minutes, they were out. They promptly walked away, speaking quietly to each other. They looked serious and in a hurry. Lumley had been observing all these people while Betty was by herself, occasionally sipping some water from a bottle. She didn't look worried, just a little tired. Lumley glanced at the 60-year-old man who still had the newspaper in hand. She expected him to be next, so called out to him, "Excuse me, sir." He immediately raised his head and replied, "Hello? Well, aren't you going in? I mean, the last person just came out." "Oh, okay, thank you," he said, and dropped the paper on the chair, and then walked briskly towards the door. Lumley shook her head and glanced at Betty, who smiled. So Lumley shook her head and glanced at Betty, who smiled. So this is the 50th page of the woman-led fiction, The Power of Coffee. The story about Martha, who is 21 years old, unemployed, though she's had a university education. She gets a job working in a coffee shop and eventually becomes the owner of the coffee shop after the owner dies. Then she comes into contact, or her path crosses with Cassandra. Cassandra, who is a young, celebrated entrepreneur. She offers to buy the coffee shop. She makes an offer for the place. Betty turns it down, and Cassandra acquires the entire area where the shop is situated to build a chain of rental homes. This is the 50th page of The Power of Coffee. If you are just joining us, you could go to the previous videos from the first page, the first 10 pages, up to this 50th page of the novel. Leave your comments, tell me what you like and don't like about the story. Be genuine, be honest with your review. Rate the story. If you'd like to have a copy of the book, it's going to get out soon, and I could send you a copy once it's out. So this is the 50th page of The Power of Coffee. The Power of Coffee. That first sip could change everything. A woman-led fiction about Martha, 21 years old, unemployed, who gets to own the coffee shop after the owner dies. Thank you for staying with me, and leave your comment. Be honest with your reviews, and if you like to pre-order, once it's out, you will get a copy. Email me, leave a message, and see you in the next 10 episode of the story. So it's 10 episodes each. Okay, the videos are 10 pages. The videos are 10 pages each. So this is the 50th page. So join me next time when I narrate the next 10 pages to make the 60th page of the novel, The Power of Coffee. That first sip could change everything. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.